Okay, we'll begin. I decided to take a brief break from the regular classes on Tanya tonight and to share with you an important topic, a very pertinent topic. There are many who unfortunately cannot attend the regular classes, so perhaps they will have a chance to hear some of this online. The title of today's topic is An Immature World, a Recipe for Turmoil. We're all observers, and if you observe properly what is going on in the world and throughout history, is unfortunately a lack of maturity on the part of adults. We think of adults, of people who are grown-ups, as more intelligent, more experienced, and they should know better. They should behave themselves. But unfortunately that is not the case, and that is why we've had turmoil in the past, and the way things are today, this is what we should be expecting. Tremendous amount of turmoil all over the world because of a lack of maturity. The reason I'm speaking a little bit about this now is because Baruch Hashem, I just finished translating a very important lecture into Portuguese and into Spanish, a lecture that I gave in English about 9 years ago. And the title of that lecture is What's Next? Doomsday and Redemption. It's almost 9 years. And I do plan to follow up on that to provide more information as to what to expect, what is happening today. So since I just finished translating them, I figured that it is a good time to just cover a little bit more in depth the substrate of the problems that are going on today. When I talk about the substrate, I mean not the divine plan. There's a divine plan, definitely a divine plan as to where the world is headed. But it is important for us to understand what is going on beneath the surface. Why are people behaving the way they are? People are immature for some reason. Not everyone, but too many. And as a result of their immaturity, they make many mistakes. And what I mean by immaturity is just think about children. Children have their toys. And so do adults. We think adults don't have toys. Adults have toys too. It could be a yacht. It could be a tank. And these are very dangerous toys sometimes. And they cause tremendous havoc in the world. So as a result of these problems that we're observing today, we need to understand, to have a better understanding of why this happens. How does this evolve? Why doesn't man just become more mature and understand on his own what is right from what is wrong? It's interesting that the Zohar says, remember the Zohar is a Kabbalistic book that was written close to 1800 years ago, give or take. And it already prophesized that in the future, in the year 1840, the gates of wisdom will open up. And if you look at the year 1840, approximately that time, that is when the Industrial Revolution began. That is when there was many advances in science. Whether it was the atom, whether it was immunization, whether it was genetics, the electromagnetic force, radio. All of a sudden there's a tremendous leap in science. Up until that point in time, the world didn't change a lot. Very few things happened. All of a sudden there's a leap. Every single year there's a leap now, actually. We've gone to space, we've landed on the moon, we have computers. Now you can not only talk to someone at the other side of the world, you can actually see him as well. And people just take this for granted. This is mentioned in the Zohar years ago, that this will happen. The gates of wisdom will open up. But what does that mean to us? It means that you can have an individual that is more knowledgeable about Mars than about himself. A lot of scientists who are very knowledgeable, very intelligent individuals know a lot about what is going on in space, but they don't know themselves. They don't realize what man is made up of and why man behaves the way he does. Even though psychologists attempt to figure out man and to figure out human behavior, They don't have the answers to all the questions. And even if they have the answers or some of the explanations, they don't necessarily have the solution on how to perfect man, how to make him a better individual. So why is it the way it is? So let's go back a little bit in time. The Torah tells us that the world was created in an imperfect state. Even though it appears to be perfect, Hashem made everything. It says so clearly what happened on the first day, what happened on the sixth day, and so forth. But if you look further, you will see that man is instructed to work hard for a living. And that's what happens in the end, is that man perfects his food. Beginning with a seed, he takes the wheat that has finally ripened. That's the maturity of the fruit. It has ripened on its own. With some human involvement, it has ripened, but it's not ready to eat yet. He has to harvest it. There's threshing, there's winnowing, there's grinding, right? There's sifting until he gets the flour and he finally makes bread and then he puts it in the oven. Look how much goes into the process of making one loaf of bread. Man needs to perfect this world in the same way that he perfects the food that he eats, for it to be tasty, for it to be edible. But in the same way that man is given instructions on how to perfect this world, how to build this world, how to maintain and preserve this world, the Jew was given a unique mission on being a light unto the nations in the spiritual realm, to refine man's character as an individual. And he has a constant reminder of this particular task called the Brit Milah, the circumcision. After all, why are we instructed as Jews to remove the foreskin? It's extra skin. Then why didn't God make it so that man is born without a foreskin? So the rabbis tell us the foreskin is to be removed by you, by man, to remind us that we still have a job to do. Something is as yet incomplete. And the Jew is instructed when it comes to that area of spirituality, of character, for him to work on himself, to work on his nature through, of course, the instructions that he receives in the Torah. In the process of perfecting ourselves, we are told to also get married. What is marriage all about? It's not just about companionship. It's not only about being fruitful and procreating and bringing a new generation into the world. It's true, that's also the case. But as the Zohar explains, the Kabbalah elaborates, that marriage is about completing each other. Man fills in where the woman is lacking, the woman fills in where the man is lacking, and when they join forces and they cooperate, as long as they cooperate, they can complete each other. What does it mean to complete each other? That they can maximize their potential. As the Zohar explains, so long as a man is not married, he's incomplete. He's half of what he could really be. So the Torah encourages man to get married, establish a home, where he can complete himself, not only physically, emotionally, and mentally. On his home, it would not be possible for him to complete himself in all those areas. So again, it's not just about physical help in the house. It's not about she will do your laundry for you and cook for you. It's much more than that. It's about a relationship that if it's done properly, on the right foundation, with the right goals in mind, it can turn out to be a very successful relationship for the two of them, through which they will grow. In other words, once they take upon themselves, they commit to each other, to share, to cooperate, to work together, to give in to each other, to be respectful of each other, all the ingredients of a successful relationship, once they commit to that and they go about doing that, then this will be a tremendous source of strength to the two of them. The problem is that so long as man is growing up so long as he's on his way to growing up, he lacks enough maturity and makes tremendous amount of mistakes as a result of them. As a result of his lack of maturity, he's prone to make a lot of mistakes. And the question is why? Why does that happen, that man makes so many mistakes? Why is he immature? So we briefly said that man is here to perfect himself. He's created, therefore, in an imperfect state. But how do we see that imperfection? In what way is that imperfection seen? So the Kabbalah explains as follows. The reason behind the imperfection is as a result that there are two souls in every human being. There's the divine soul and there's the animal spirit. The divine soul resides in the brain, the mind. The animal spirit is in the heart. And it just happens to be that the animal spirit is more powerful than the divine spirit. More powerful meaning that the odds are against the divine spirit, that it will lose if the two fight each other, which they do. Even though the intellect, the divine spirit, has tremendous potential of controlling the animal spirit and reining him in, for some reason it does not always succeed in doing that. Why? Why does this animal spirit have more power? And the best way to understand this is through sports. You've heard of the concept, the home team. Whether it's in soccer or basketball or any other sport, they say that the home team has an advantage. Right? All the fans who are there, who do they want to win? Who would they encourage to win? Their own home team. The physical body is in its home team. What's the home team of the physical body? This physical world. So the animal spirit is basically at home. It is comfortable. It does not need to struggle that much. It's natural for him to desire certain things, to want to have certain things. That's what this physical world is all about. The one that really is struggling is that which is spiritual in nature. The soul. The soul is caged into this physical body, going along for the ride. Hopefully, it will make the right decisions, but not always. It will make many mistakes because the physical body has something else in mind. It wants to enjoy itself. So there's this continuous struggle between the two. With this, we can understand why the Torah relates to us that Hashem hardened the heart of Paro. We're reading about this right now. Hashem hardened the heart of Paro in order to bring about all those miracles in Egypt, the plagues. Why does it talk about hardening the heart? Why not mess up his brain? Why not interfere with his mind? Why not block his mind? Why does it talk about the heart? Isn't the head where we make our decisions? Isn't that an interesting question? Why does the Torah put an emphasis on the heart being supreme? Where in reality it's the head that really has the final say, the final word. But based on what we just said, it's easier to understand. Who's the one that's usually in charge? The heart. Which is why the Torah tells us, be careful. Don't follow, don't heed. Don't go after what your eyes see and what your heart desires. Why not? Because they will mislead you. The rabbis tell us these two, the eyes and the heart, are agents of sin. Agents of sin? Yes, because it begins with the eyes. The eyes see something, and the heart covets and desires it. Then the rest of the body goes ahead and does whatever it needs to make itself happy, to get its hands on it. So it begins with the eyes. Even though the Torah says the heart before the eyes, that's because of curiosity. The human being is curious. He's first curious. The heart has an interest. And therefore he allows the eyes to stray. The eyes therefore are curious and they see and they check it out. Then the heart wants it. And that's the end of the story. That is how people commit a wrong sometimes, by going after what their eyes and heart desire. The Torah warns us, because these are the agents of sin. Even though the mind can also be a very, very powerful lawyer in trying to justify everything, but it begins with the heart. The mind does not get involved yet in the process of decision making until first it has been processed in the heart. Which is why the Torah tells us to be careful with shochad and negi'ut. Be careful with bribes. Be careful with anything that is bias. Bias? People can be biased? Yes, people can be biased and they can be prejudiced. Everyone. Every human being can, unfortunately, be subject to bias. The Torah says so. Bribes have the power to blind the righteous, it says. It doesn't say the average individual. The righteous even can fall, because it's money. Or any other favor. It's powerful. Somehow it has the power to mislead us. One could be a righteous individual. He can be a smart individual. Very, very knowledgeable. So what? He can fall. A lot of people have complained to me many, many times. How come this religious individual is corrupt? How come this person who they thought was so righteous committed this sin? How could it be? So I tell them, listen, angels live in heaven. Down here live human beings. And even if he has a long beard, it makes no difference. That long beard will not necessarily save him, protect him from the evil inclination. If it's a big bribe, a lot of people will fall for it. I'm talking about a real big bribe. It could be a judge. It could be anybody. A big bribe? Sure. This is bias. This is because the animal spirit in us understands this, appreciates this, likes this. Unless the individual becomes fully mature. That's the key here. What kind of maturity are we talking about? So the rabbis tell us as follows. When does maturity happen? How does it develop? Well, by some people it never fully develops. I talk about the ones where it does develop. Two things happen to make the individual a little bit more mature. And when that happens, he gains greater control over himself. Number one, age. The older a person gets, what will happen to that animal spirit? It will weaken. I don't think somebody at the age of 80 has the exact same cravings as somebody at the age of 20. Right? Anybody here 80? I don't think so. Okay. Well, you will see it when you get there. It's just normal. At that stage, the body doesn't have an interest in that. It sleeps less, I think. That's what they tell me, at least. Right? You sleep less, you eat less. A lot of things are just diminished. So that's a big plus for someone who really wants to be more spiritual. He doesn't have to fight as hard anymore. Now, he may be tired, he may be stubborn and not want to make any changes in his life. That's a different problem. But at the very least, he doesn't have the physicality pulling at him, telling him, you got to buy a bigger house. You got to buy a newer car. Even though some people may want that, even at a later stage in life, but it's not as exciting as it used to be, or as tempting. So that's the first thing that happens, is age. With age, we see life differently. We look back and we laugh at ourselves. This is what we enjoyed doing back then, and today we realize it's not so important. And sometimes we regret it. And that's a good sign, by the way, when you regret things that were wrong. Some people don't regret. There's some blockage in them. that is not letting them develop properly, mature properly. But regret is very important. But regret can only come if one realizes his mistakes. One will not realize his mistakes if he's not mature. So, growing older helps one in his maturity, but does not guarantee that he will be completely mature. What's number 2? The rabbis tell us, once you hit the age of 40, you will acquire binah. Binah is greater understanding. As it is enumerated in Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of Our Fathers, man goes through various stages in his life. Stage of marriage, right? Then he goes through the stage of finding a job, working, building a family, right? There's a stage of 40 and 50. 40 is when one acquires supposedly a greater degree of understanding, and 50 is when he's capable of giving others advice because he's gone through so much himself. So this is not just a matter of time anymore. This is not just a matter of age. It's a matter of certain things happening automatically from above. The best way to understand this is think of a baby. A baby does not have teeth when it's born. Otherwise, he would give his mother a very hard time when he's nursing. You see how everything comes in its right time? Progressively. Man grows physically, progressively, and so it's supposed to be with his maturity. At 40, he acquires binah. And what is this binah supposed to help him with? It's supposed to make him realize his mistakes. It's supposed to give him the strength of understanding where he was wrong. And if he's really mature, he will also admit it. And if he admits his mistakes, he's also prepared to also accept criticism, constructive criticism from others. Look what goes into maturity. All of this. Realizing one's mistakes, being able to admit them, being able to say sorry, being able to be forgiving to others as well. There's a lot that goes into maturity. And I'm going to share with you some of those things that are supposed to happen, that are supposed to develop. And by many people, they do not. And if they do not, and they're married to someone who is, can you imagine the problems between them? One is mature and one is not so mature. Between friends, family members, it's a problem. So what happens with time is that one is supposed to recognize his weaknesses. If he has reached that point where he begins to realize that he's not perfect, oh, there's something that I need to work on myself. This is a weakness that I have to deal with. That is already one indicator, a sign that he's maturing. So could you imagine those that don't admit it? Those that deny that they have a weakness? That tells you a lot about their maturity. Even though, for a normal individual, it is possible to become mature with time and proper preparation, this will only work if the foundation is solid. If you build a building on a foundation which is not solid, which is shaky, the whole thing will fall. Foundation is education, is one's upbringing at home. If the upbringing at home, the education at school, the friends, if it's all solid and healthy, then there's a better chance that what is going to be built on top of that foundation will last, will be strong. But you can build a very big building, and we'll call that building a PhD, where this individual spent years in college. But this PhD, this big tall building, is on a very, very shaky foundation of bad manners, alcohol. Yes, there are some professors who have this weakness. They're professors with a PhD. The foundation is no good. The upbringing, something is lacking that makes it a very weak, shaky foundation. The whole thing can fall. This man who, even though he's very, very intelligent, can fail miserably in life. Even though his career is okay initially, he eventually will possibly be fired. Anything can happen if the foundation is shaky. So, what is the foundation made up of? Shlomo HaMelech in Mishlei reveals to us a very important idea about how to build this foundation. And he says like this, "Lama ze biyad ksil liknot chokhmah velev ayin?" Why is the fool so interested in acquiring chokhmah, acquiring wisdom, if he has no heart? Again, we're back to a heart. What is this heart? One more time. Why is the fool making such an effort to acquire chokhmah? In other words, he's going to class, he's going to college, whatever. He wants to acquire wisdom. Why waste his time if he has no heart? What's this heart? The heart is yirat shamayim, the fear of heaven. It means to be a responsible human being. It means to care about others. It means emotional maturity, which is a different kind of maturity, but it's also just as important. Lev, emotional maturity, responsibility. Yirat shamayim, what we call the fear of heaven, which covers a lot. If he does not have that as a foundation, if that's not there to begin with, then all this chokhmah will not help him, will not guide him properly. It will be raw knowledge. What will it do for him? Make him some money? It will not make him a better person. He will not mature. Now you can understand the symbolism, the importance of a bar mitzvah. What is a bar mitzvah in a Jew's life? And a bat mitzvah for a girl at the age of 12 and for the boy at the age of 13. What is the significance of that stage? What really happens then? The children are being told that they from now on assume tremendous responsibilities where they will be held accountable for their actions. I'm going to be held accountable? Sure. Just like the law holds you accountable in this world, so will it be in the world to come. We're accountable. Life has meaning and purpose. Our actions make a difference. Watch out. Be careful. Don't have this liberal attitude that you can do anything you want, which many people have. I can do anything I want. Nobody should tell me what to do. It's my right. You know, all kinds of ideas that people have that they don't realize that you cannot function properly with this kind of an attitude. You need to have a certain structure. You need to have certain values that are solid. And those values have to be shared by the entire community, otherwise it's chaos. There's war. I mean, these are obvious things. This is so logical. We see the consequences of a life without values, without structure, without any meaning. People don't care. So Bar Mitzvah boy is told that from now on, he's pretty much on his own, even though Hashem will help him, of course. But how will he succeed? Just by being told? Just by being told will he succeed? There's something else. What does a Bar Mitzvah boy do? What is the first mitzvah that he gets as soon as he turns 13?
Tefillin.
Tefillin. What is the tefillin? Inside the tefillin, there is a parchment, or several parchments, as I will show you, that contain basically the yoke of heaven, all malchut shamayim, that a Jew accepts upon himself, that he commits himself to maintaining a strong connection with Hashem at all times. But I want to show you something about these tefillin. We have two. The shel rosh, the one we put on our head, and the one we put on our hand. Most people do not know the difference between them, except that one goes on the head. It looks slightly different because it has two straps coming down, and the one in the hand that you make several turns. But there's a very big difference between the two of them. So let me show you first the one on the hand. The one in the hand, if you look at it, it appears to be just square, plain, smooth. Obviously it's black. right? With some interesting details, the knot, the strap. Okay? Inside this box, there's a parchment, one long parchment containing 4 parshiot, containing 4 chapters in the Torah, reminding the Jew of his commitment. Okay. So this one we put on our left arm. Now let's take a look at the Shel Rosh, the one on the head. This one looks similar, but if you look closely at this one, you will see 4 grooves. It's not smooth. It is square, it's black, but it has 4 grooves. Can you see? Besides the shin on the 2 sides, some additional details to it. But this is a very interesting idea, the idea of the grooves. Grooves means that there's 4 compartments. That means that the parchments are separate. It's not one long parchment, 4 individual parchments of the same parshiot. So why should the Shel Rosh be any different than the Shel Yad? Why should the one on the head be any different than the one on the hand? One explanation given for it is that we have 5 senses. The sense of vision, the sense of hearing, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, and the sense of touch. Right? 4 of those 5 senses are in the head. The sense of touch is in the hand. So the Shel Rosh, the tefillin of the head, contains those 4 grooves corresponding to the 4 senses that we have in the head, versus the hand has only 1 parchment containing all 4, because the hand is the sense of touch. And what does the Jew do when he puts the tefillin on a daily basis, except for Shabbat and holidays? He commits all those senses to the service of Hashem. He basically reminds himself, I'm not here in this world for myself. God did not give me a lease of life just for my pleasure, to enjoy myself here. Whatever I do, I'm supposed to commit myself to do it for Him, for His sake. Not everybody thinks about that at all times. If they would, we would be living in a different world. People, unfortunately, are self-centered into themselves, which is one of the causes of major problems that people have, conflicts. But here comes along a Jew who hopefully, if he has the right intent and right focus, he says, no, I will commit everything for the service of Hashem. He comes first, not me. And whatever He asks me to do, I will consider seriously before I do anything I do. That is what it's supposed to remind us. So a young man at the age of 13 is already embarking on a very, very serious path of hopefully refining his character, working on himself. And if he does that, along with his learning regiment and his future marriage to his soulmate, will hopefully enable him to complete himself and to become a mature human being. But what happens if he doesn't do things right? What happens if he doesn't do things properly? He can become a gaon, he can become a genius. Possibly, yeah. He has a very high IQ, he's very learned, he could possibly learn a lot, but no emotional stability. He will be emotionally immature. How do you know when somebody's emotionally immature? One of the first signs is that he has no control over his emotions. He cannot handle anger. He cannot handle fear. He cannot handle being disappointed. He goes crazy when he's disappointed, doesn't get his way. He has a difficult time with jealousy, with grief. Various areas in life where he will have a hard time. This individual cannot or does not want to take full responsibility for his actions. And this is where it all begins. Something else happens to him. His ability to interpret and to react to a variety of challenges in life is also impaired. In other words, he's limited. If one faces a challenge, and we all face challenges from time to time, how do we react to them? How do we deal with them? How do we interpret them? What does it mean to us? It will depend on our level of maturity. You will also notice that many such individuals who are emotionally not mature are self-centered, just like children. This is mine. You know how children fight over something? Wait a minute, don't you know about sharing? It is lacking. They don't fully understand the need to cooperate. They need to share. And what's so common is the nature of blaming others for their problems. This is so very, very much seen by many people who have this weakness, who are not fully mature. They somehow find it easy to blame others instead of blaming themselves. Why? Why do they do that? Anybody know? Why should they blame others and not themselves? I mean, isn't it obvious that it's this individual's problem? Why project it onto others? Why blame it onto others? People who are emotionally immature cannot look inwardly. They have this weakness, they have this problem, they cannot look inside. It's easy for them to look at others. And even at others, they don't see very well. They think they do. But inside, what did we started? We started off saying that scientists know a lot more about Mars than about themselves. When I say about oneself, I'm not talking about the anatomy of the human body. I'm talking spiritually, the soul, our strengths, our weaknesses, our abilities, inner abilities, our feelings, our psyche. People are not fully aware of that potential that they have, and what their issues are, and what they really need to do to correct them. This is all a lack of maturity, not fully developed individual. And this presents many problems. As we mature, we're supposed to realize, and this could be very, very helpful, that we don't have control over everything. This would help with the disappointment issue. Why can't he handle disappointment? He doesn't realize, one of the reasons is he doesn't realize that we do not have complete control over everything. We simply don't. However, what could very, very much help this individual is somehow if he would be taught and convinced to accept criticism, constructive criticism. Because once he's taught and he agrees to accept constructive criticism, hopefully, little by little, step by step, he will come to terms with the fact that no human being is perfect, including himself. And since he's not perfect, however, he has a divine soul, hopefully with the proper guidance, that divine soul will hopefully take charge, not his animal spirit. So if we convince the individual to accept criticism, to understand that he has certain faults, and that we all do, that he's not worse than them. A lot of people do not know how to criticize properly, and they make people feel very, very bad. That's terrible. It's a terrible thing that can cause a tremendous amount of damage in bringing about a very low self-esteem in the individual. You want to help him, right? You don't want to put him down. If that's the goal, is to help, then you got to include yourself with his problems. You think you have a problem? So do I. Yeah, we all do. That is better. Don't point fingers. But hopefully, he will be able to overcome this. In other words, he will be able at some point in his life to realize that we're all not perfect. We have imperfections. But in order to overcome them, one needs to accept the criticism. If he cannot overcome that, if he cannot get himself to do that, then how can you help him? He will never mature 100%. So once a person is able to accept criticism, he will also be able to learn from his own experiences and realize, oh, now I see those first 15 years of my life, what a waste. Mistake after mistake. Well, it's better late than never. So how do we go about building this foundation? So I briefly told you about the bar mitzvah boy. The bar mitzvah boy makes a commitment, but it doesn't start, foundation doesn't start to be built at the age of 13. It begins earlier. There was once someone that came to a rabbi for advice. His wife had just given birth, and the child was growing up, and he wanted to know, Rabbi, when do I start educating my child? From what age, from what point on? He says, you're 9 months late. Even from before the pregnancy, the way the husband relates to his wife, the way the wife relates to her husband, the time that they are together, before the child is even born, is also important. You don't wait till the child grows. It becomes only more difficult. Yes?
You mentioned before, Rabbi, that before the child becomes 13, he only has the Yetzer Hara. He doesn't have the Yetzer Tov.
Right. Before the age of 13, the evil inclination is present, not the good inclination yet.
So it has a 13-year start on the individual.
That's correct.
So at the time that the individual becomes bar mitzvah,
sure,
the Yetzer Tov is a newborn.
Right. So the Yetzer Hara has an advantage, right?
Long-term advantage. So when you have the tefillin and you have the mitzvah that the child takes on, is to help that Yetzer Tov to grow up as quickly as possible.
Right. We want the Yetzer Tov to catch up. But remember that at the age of 13, the child's mind has matured a little bit, not completely. He could not have had the good inclination early on, because then the little child would have had conflicts all the time between the two. In order for him to handle this battle between the two forces, he has to have a little bit of maturity. But in order for us to be able to help this individual catch up, that is what I'm talking about right now. He has to have a solid foundation, even before the bar mitzvah. That solid foundation consists of a very healthy upbringing in a good school, good teachers, and good friends. Why is that so important? Why can't we start at 13, or why not at 18? The reason for that is as follows. You know about loans, right? There's something called the first, there's something called the second. Why is a second more expensive? The interest is higher on the second than it is on the first. Because the second has a disadvantage. If the individual paying the mortgage defaults, then the one who's in first position, the first bank, will take the house. And if there's not enough money, well, the second loan will lose. So there's a risk involved for seconds. You understand this, right? The one who's in a stronger position is the one that is in first position. Always. The same is with the human being. Who is in first position in the mind of this child? Was communism in first position for 20 years? Well, good luck. Whoever was there for 20 years in first position, you think you're going to just erase all of that? He's brainwashed. It all depends on what you instilled in that child for the first 10, 20 years. That's the first position. That's the foundation. Values, teachings. If you immersed in mud, right, then how are you going to wash it out? How are you going to clean it? How are you going to clean it? Mud. The mind is contaminated with schmutz, as we call it in Yiddish. How are you going to get rid of it? It's difficult. The older the person is, the harder it is for him to change. As they say, I think in English there's a saying, you can't teach an old monkey new tricks.
Old dog.
An old dog? Well, maybe it depends from which country you are. In South America, we have a lot of monkeys. Anyway. But that's the way it is. It's harder. So when we talk about foundation, when we talk about upbringing, we're talking about the values and the teachings that we want the child to have as soon as possible. The earlier the better. So how are we going to help someone who's already beyond that stage? You know, he's beyond bar mitzvah, he is already grown up. Is there anything we can do to help him? Of course there is. But as the rabbis tell us, we cannot teach the entire Torah al regel achat, standing on one foot. So it is not possible for me to cover all the ideas and all that is necessary to help someone standing on one foot, in other words, just in 1 hour's time. But I'm going to give you some ideas that I've seen others talk about that can be helpful. The number one quality that is imperative, that can make a world of a difference in a child and an adult, is if he commits himself to work on midat haemet, being truthful. As David HaMelech says, Mi aleh behar Hashem, who will ascend the mountain of God? One who's honest, clean hands, pure heart, right? And v'dover emet bilvavo, and he speaks truth in his heart. What does it mean to speak truth in one's heart? So the rabbis give us an example of Rabbi Safra. Rabbi Safra had a shop, and whenever there were no customers, he would pray. And one time he was praying, he was saying the Shema. Somebody came to him and said, I would like to buy this from you, this particular vessel. But the rabbi didn't answer. He was praying, he couldn't answer in the middle of the prayer. So the customer thought that the rabbi wanted more money. He says, I'll give you more for this. No answer. He hiked up the price even more. I'll pay you even more for it. Finally, the rabbi finished the prayer, and he says, I'm going to accept from you only the original price that I had in mind. I'm not going to take advantage of you even though you offered me more. The reason I couldn't answer you was because I was praying. And you mistook that to mean that I refused. No, I'm only going to charge you the original lower price. That's called dover emet bilvavo, in his heart. Whatever he intended, he kept. He could have easily taken advantage and said, well, what did you say, $150? Well, in reality, the price was only $35. No, but in his heart, he had already made up his mind. He had already decided what the price would be. He kept his word. Train people to be truthful. If a person keeps his word and remains truthful, the midah of emet, this midah, this quality of truthfulness will help him very, very much in life, in many, many areas. So that's one place to start. Truthfulness. One should begin to see the good in others, just like he should see the good in himself. He also has potential. He has good qualities too, but don't only see the good in yourself. Other people have good qualities as well. Learn to see the good in others. Do things for them. Listen to them. After all, part of the problem of people who are not very mature is selfishness. So how do we make someone who's selfish unselfish? You've got to train them. Do for others. And when you do for others, don't just help them. Listen to them. That is sometimes the biggest favor you can do for someone, is to listen to them. A lot of people don't have the patience to do that. When you give charity, you sometimes are doing a bigger mitzvah, encouraging the individual, making him feel good, saying a kind word to him, much more than the money that you gave him. Listen to what they're saying, listen to their troubles, and empathize with them. Cooperation with others is something that people have to get used to. A lot of people have this problem that they want to always win. They want to always win. Let somebody else win sometimes too. Cooperate. This is not only about you. Another idea that I saw that I very much believe is very helpful is to develop optimism. To develop optimism is something that a lot of people have a hard time with, because by nature they're easily depressed, they're sad, and they suffer from all kinds of ills which bring about this moodiness in them. Optimism is hope. Optimism reminds one that things can change for the better at any time, even though they're not so good right now. But you know what optimism will do more than that? It will give the individual confidence, which a lot of people don't have enough of. You can do it. Person is emotionally immature, he doesn't have enough confidence in himself. He doesn't know it even. But if he's really optimistic and he changes his attitude, develops a positive attitude, this will give him additional strength to become even more confident of himself. One more idea that I think is very, very special, and that also is part of being emotionally mature, and that is the ability to forgive and forget. A lot of people may have harmed you, they have done something to you, and you're very upset at them. Learn to forgive and forget. No one is perfect. People make mistakes. And even if they didn't say sorry, that's okay. That's their problem that they didn't say sorry. They have their own issues, but what about yourself right now? You want to take control. You gain control when you're able to forgive and forget. That, to me, that shows tremendous progress, that the individual is maturing emotionally when he's capable of doing that. Husband and wives, if they would only learn that early on, they would help themselves a lot. A lot, a lot. Forgive and forget, and realize that the other person has certain weakness, and that's why you married them. Perhaps you can help them, and they can help you in some way. All of that takes maturity, and understanding and seeing the bigger picture out there. Looking inwards, look at yourself, and you'll realize that you're not perfect either. The Torah, however, reminds the Jew that there is something that he can do that will be very helpful to him in all areas of life. And that is the mitzvah of Chodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. As soon as the Jewish people come out of Egypt, they're told about establishing the new moon. They're told about Nisan being the first month. Why talk about the calendar right away? Even though Nisan is a special month because that's the month of the Exodus from Egypt, why talk about that mitzvah right at the very beginning? So I was thinking about it the other day, and this is what I thought. The Torah is telling us the importance of time and structure. Time is a valuable asset. One needs to be very careful not to waste it. One needs to be very careful in maximizing it and using it properly. It's all about structure. If one is structured, if one has a healthy routine every day where he prays, where he learns, and he sticks to it, and he's consistent, structure, and he values his time and he manages it properly, this will make order in his life. This contributes to maturity too, because he realizes the importance of time. He's not going to waste it. This can only work, however, if he truly understands the value of time. That is what the rabbis remind us. Hayom katzar v'melacha merubah. Just keep in mind that life is short, and there's a lot of work to be done. Don't think you have all the time in the world. If you're over 50, you're downhill. How much time do you have? Well, maybe not so much. People forget about it. They just get carried away and go on with their life as though they have unlimited amount of time, but we don't. Everyone has a mission to accomplish. Don't you want to fulfill your mission? We all hopefully want to accomplish something in life. And it's not just about money, because we're not taking the money with us. So what could it be? What are we here for? So hopefully if we arrange our day, our routine, in such a way where we maximize, where we realize what our priorities should be, whether it's spending more time with the family, whether it is learning more, whether it is helping someone at an old age home who's very lonely. Regardless, everyone has a different preference, or perhaps he has the chance, the opportunity to do certain things that other people don't have. So depending on the circumstances, depending on the individual, we can all structure our life in such a way that we can maximize it to its fullest, which would of course make it much more productive, much more fulfilling. This is all part of being mature. If you look around the world today, regardless of the country, a lot of what I said is lacking. People don't have these things. People don't think about these things. Leaders of countries, prime ministers, presidents, kings, are not thinking about this. So what are they thinking? About winning the next election, or about conquering another country, about developing a longer missile that can kill people. That's all they're thinking about. That's why I decided to talk about this. What is this indicative of? Of a lack of maturity. People are not understanding. And I say people, I mean everyone, regardless of their religion, regardless of their position of power. What a waste of time, a waste of effort, a waste of money. Being childish. These are adults, leaders of countries, playing around and behaving like children. There's no better explanation for it. Simply immature, not understanding or not seeing the bigger picture of what life is all about, and behaving like children. Oh, this is mine. I want it for myself. You took this, I'm going to take this from you. Revenge. And this is all about politics, which is false. Politics is not something that is founded on truth. It is founded on lies. It's how to present your case in such a way where you can convince people of what you want. But what about if what he wants makes more sense? No, people don't think like that. His position makes more sense? No, it's not possible. He's for sure wrong. What do we talk about? Cooperation, seeing one's own faults. How will he ever cooperate, and how will he ever see his faults if he only thinks of himself? Just want to finish up with what Abraham Lincoln said. You have to do your own growing, no matter how tall your grandfather was. He was a tall man. But what is behind this is that even though you may come from very special parents and grandparents, and they may have achieved a lot in their lifetime, you can't just rely on them. You have to do your own growing. Man has to think of his own growth, even though hopefully that growth will be relying partially on the foundation that his parents and grandparents laid for him. Obviously, all of that will make a difference to him. The past does make a difference. The parents we have, the grandparents we have, the traditions we have, the long tradition, all of this makes a tremendous difference. We have something to look back to. Over 3,000 years of tradition. The great people, the great sages that came before us, that is a very strong foundation. But we have to do our own growing. We have our own battles. We have our own challenges. But B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully if we structure our life properly and we have the proper foundation, we will be able to grow. Hashem will help us. The time is fast approaching that the gates of wisdom that we know today will be nothing, minuscule compared to the great knowledge that will abound when Mashiach comes. As the prophet says, Ki malei haaretz da'ah et Hashem kamayim layam mechasim. The entire world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem that everybody will thirst to know, just like the waters cover the sea. That will be tremendous when people will realize that this is what we should really be striving for, to acquire this knowledge. But this time around, it will be with having a heart as well. Not just plain raw knowledge, but having a heart and wanting to also be a better person.